Happy Monday, September 15th, 2025. We just wrapped up the Sunday slate of Week 2 in the NFL, and it's pretty exciting stuff. One of the best Sundays we've seen of NFL football in quite some time. NFL Red Zone was all over the place. Scott Hanson deserved a long nap after yesterday, and it's the Week 2 Wake-Up. Welcome in. My name is Gabby Gordon. Welcome to the Gabby Gordon Show. Usually we have shows on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I'm trying to work in the week wake-ups now, just so we can give more time to talk about some other topics on Friday's show and really just make one show dedicated to talking about some NFL football and takeaways from the previous slate on that Sunday. So a lot of matchups to get to. We're obviously not going to get to all of them because we'd be sitting here for at least 2+ hours trying to get through everything that went on around the league. But certainly a lot of notable performances from different players. Obviously an injury in Joe Burrow. That was huge to discuss, and especially for fantasy football owners like myself. Going to be interesting. The Giants and the Cowboys play an absolute thriller. I'll tell you, you go into Sunday, you definitely didn't peg that one as your game of the week, and that may have been the game of the week. The Jets get absolutely pummeled by the Bills, and Josh Allen didn't even play his best game. He had a bloody nose halfway through as well, so there's that. Daniel Jones is 2-0 as an Indianapolis Colt. There's a lot to unpack in Week 2 of the NFL, and it's not over. We got 2 games tonight, 2 games on the Monday slate, which is new from what we usually see. Usually it's your one Monday primetime game. This one, we got 2 matchups, and one of them's late. Now, I need my sleep. I don't think I can stay up until past the hours of midnight for these games. But listen, Roger Goodell's got plans for the league. He's got 2 games tonight, and it's an exciting time for football fans. So I'd honestly be remiss if I didn't start with the Giants-Cowboys game, because what an incredible matchup. 40-37. And it's not every day that both offenses break 30 in an absolute firework explosion of offensive football. And it's something that we haven't seen from the Giants in quite some time. Week 1, there was no offense. They didn't score a touchdown. This week, Russell Wilson played one of the best games of his career. That says a lot as a 2-time Super Bowl quarterback, and then as a Super Bowl champion, going 1 of 2 in his Super Bowl appearances. And then, of course, just measuring up his time with the Seahawks. And then he's got time with the Broncos for 2 seasons, and then the Steelers in 2024, and now the New York Giants. And you call this matchup one of his best performances in his career. Honestly, without a doubt. Russell Wilson was phenomenal in this game, aside from that final interception in overtime, which ultimately set up the Brandon Aubrey 46-yard field goal that won the game. But other than that, the connection between Wilson and Malik Nabers was something so special that last season, in his rookie year, they were looking for in Malik Nabers. They were looking for connection, and they didn't have that between Jones and Nabers. And we'll get to Daniel Jones later on in this episode because he's doing some other pretty special things in Indianapolis compared to what he's done in his career with New York. But Russell Wilson, listen, coming into Week 2, a lot of fans were already calling for start Dart, right? Start Jackson Dart. And I talked about this on Friday, about how you don't want to rush a kid like Jackson Dart into a situation that's ultimately going to lead to failure. The Giants are not in a situation to uplift this kid into great levels of victory right now. And that's not the case for every quarterback, right? You see what Caleb Williams was brought into. He was brought into a dumpster fire, right? Justin Fields didn't really have much of a chance to succeed. Now he's had more so of a chance to succeed. But even then, those are 2 examples of quarterbacks who have been brought in to adversity and just thrown in there and not been able to really learn behind a veteran. You have Jackson Dart and an opportunity to develop him behind Russell Wilson, no reason that he starts in week 2. And so I'm glad that that wasn't the case. I don't think there's any reason for him to start for the foreseeable future, especially after this offensive explosion from the Giants. You see that the offense is capable of things. Now, granted, you asked the question, are the Giants good offensively or are the Cowboys defensively just bad? I think it's a mixture of both, to be honest. I don't think the Giants' offense is something that you look on paper and say, wow, that's special. Aside from, a handful of players, obviously Malik being one of them. But you do have talent in certain places if you develop it properly. And having Wilson as a veteran guy who knows the game, even with some blunders here and there, that gives you a good chance to put up points offensively. If he can get the ball to guys like Malik Neighbors, who are going to make plays because Neighbors is a star, you're going to have success offensively, whether it's a bad defense or not. If the Giants are playing the Bills in this situation, do they score 37? Likely not. The Cowboys' defense isn't something special, but it was a dogfight. What stands out to me personally is the Giants' defense. Just horrendous. Absolutely blew the game. They just let the Cowboys march down the field. Some of the calls from Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, to me, some of them fireable offenses, but I never call for someone to lose their job. That's not my place, of course. So you look at this team, do you really see a future? Let me put it this way. This was an incredible game for Giants fans to watch. Listen, there are 2 massive Giants fans in my household, right? My father, my brother. Massive Giants fans. This is the first game in a long time that they've been able to sit there in excitement and anticipation. This is the first time in a while that Giants fans as a whole have been able to enjoy a football game up until overtime, right? Do you see a future with this team, though? If you couldn't win this game, which to me, from my point of view, my opinion, was handed to them on a silver platter. The Cowboys didn't win this game, the Giants lost this game. I'll put it that way. So if that's the case, do you see many other wins on the New York Giants schedule? And if your answer is no, and I would assume most will say no, do you see a future, right? Do you see a future with this current front office for the Giants if they couldn't pull away with this one? And I'm not going to blame it all on coaching because your players have to execute plays that you put out there. And listen, when a guy makes 4 consecutive penalties on a drive and is still in the game, questions, but then gets taken out of the game, when a guy makes 4 consecutive penalties, that's not on a coach, that's literally just on the player. All accountability goes to him. And what was going on there, I have no idea. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you can't blame it all on Dable and the coaching staff. If you look beyond the penalties, though, because that's just undisciplined football, and granted, that does come from the top down. Discipline comes from the coach. But you have to execute, and they didn't execute on every play. So do you see a future with Brian Dable and the New York Giants after this game? That's the question. If we just go back and analyze this game, coming into this matchup, the Giants weren't really supposed to give the Cowboys much of a hard time. They had an ugly loss to the Commanders in Week 1, and the defense actually held the Commanders pretty well. The offense did nothing. You switch this game around, let the defense do its job, let the offense do what it did, right? If you combine both pieces from Week 1, Week 2, and put it together, you've got a team that's 1-1 right now. That's a lot better than 0-2. The Giants have started 0-2 for many seasons in a row now. Like I mentioned, this is one of Wilson's best starts, though, since leaving Seattle. This is his best start since leaving Seattle. He had a 93.1 total QBR through the end of regulation. That was the second best mark of the day. It would have been the best mark he posted in a game since the 2021 season. After he hit Malik Neighbors with a 48-yard touchdown pass to take the lead back for the Giants with 25 seconds to go, he was 27 of 36 for 433 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and no picks. He took only 2 sacks on 39 dropbacks and added a first down on a 15-yard scramble. That is a massive, massive day for Russell Wilson. And he finished the day with well over 433 yards. But, as I've said before, no one reads yesterday's newspaper, and all people are going to really remember about that matchup is the fact that the Giants lost, and ultimately lost on the interception that was under pressure. That's an interception where you throw the ball up and hope that your best receiver in Malik Neighbors is going to come down with it. That's pretty much what the play call was. I think Malik kind of called off his own route, cut a different way. Russell thought he was going to go the other way. And there you go, right in the hands of the Dallas defender. I would like to think that he was trying to throw the ball out of bounds in Neighbors' direction, and he missed by about 5 yards. But there was nothing in that pass that I saw that it was going anywhere. That was just an abysmal pass. I would like to think he was trying to throw it in the out-of-bounds direction, trying to get a Neighbors toe tap, but then you look at where the ball actually ended up, and it was that. And then the interception didn't end the game, right? The Cowboys only took over on their own 30-yard line. But then, of course, the Giants let them move down the field, get into field goal range, and then in these days, in the NFL in 2025, honestly, a 50-yard field goal is a chip shot. So you'd say a 46-yard field goal is pretty simple as well. And there was no question there that Aubrey was going to make that field goal. Everybody at that point knew the game was pretty much over. I saw Giants fans post that once it was time for overtime, they knew the game was over. They knew the Giants were not going to go in and win in the overtime fashion. And the fact that they let the Cowboys tie the game was enough to see that they weren't going to pull this victory out. I really need to talk about James Hudson for a second because, and I heard DiPietro and Rothenberg on ESPN New York this morning, and Dave put it perfectly. He had a mental breakdown, a nervous breakdown rather, during an NFL game. That's all. That is what you describe it as. How does that happen? He had 2 unnecessary roughness penalties and 2 false starts in a 4-play sequence. And then you pan the camera to head coach Brian Daboll, who is saying, take him out. And then he comes out of the game, he gets benched, and he loses his mind on the sideline. He loses his mind. One of the penalties cost the Giants a 1st and goal opportunity at the 2-yard line after a deep Wan'Dale Robinson catch. How do you do that? I understand 1 penalty, 2 penalties. I have never, ever, in my time watching NFL football, seen a player break down like that on the field. What was he doing? I truly would have loved to just be inside his mind for the entirety of those 4 plays. And then the audacity to go insane, to lose his temper after being taken out. You think that he's going to leave you in the game? You just cost your team 50 yards. 2 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalties, 5-yard false starts. I mean, you just ruined an entire drive single-handedly. Everybody always says that this is a team sport. This is one of the team sports. In that situation, Hudson single-handedly ruined a drive. There was no team in that situation. It was James Hudson ruining a drive. It didn't get much worse than that. And the funny part, no, I wouldn't say funny, the concerning part is that you see him make these 4 consecutive penalties. You see Daboll saying, get him out of the game. And then the next play, he's still in the game. After that, he was taken out. I understand maybe they wanted to give him that one play, personnel, whatever. They couldn't sub him out right away. And they certainly weren't prepared to have to do that in the first place, because who on God's green earth does that in an NFL game? I had no words when I saw that. And then to see his reaction after he got taken out of the game. As an NFL player, what do you expect? He was limited to special teams after he got taken out of the game. So he wasn't benched for the remainder of the game, but he wasn't going onto the offensive line the rest of the game, I'll tell you that. what do you expect as a player when you make such costly mistakes? And it's not one costly, unnecessary roughness penalty. That's the difference. It's what blows my mind that he had the audacity to lose his mind on the sideline. He made 4 consecutive penalties. He cost his team 50 yards. He probably cost his team a touchdown. And in the grand scheme of things, one would say the win. Insane. And then on the Cowboys side, the Cowboys didn't impress me. Dak Prescott's had some difficult starts, right? So far, and I say difficult starts in the sense that it's week 2, but week 1 he didn't look great. Week 2 he started off slow. And it was a nightmare scenario if they went 0-2, because all the speculation surrounding Jerry Jones and how he manages the team, getting rid of Micah Parsons in right before the season started, if they were to start 0-2, there'd be a ton of angry fans. Right? So much frustration surrounding the Cowboys right now. But I will say this, takeaways from the Cowboys. Their run game has been surprisingly effective so far this season. Williams turned 18 carries into 97 yards against the Giants, and he had a 30-yard touchdown as well. Now take what you will, Giants defense, who, by the way, is supposed to be the strong suit of the team, seemingly the weak part of the team, at least in this matchup. And then, of course, I know Jerry Jones looking in the mirror and just hyping himself up because Kenny Clark had back-to-back pressures, which blew up another sequence, forcing the Giants into a field goal. So all of that speculation surrounding why are we taking Kenny Clark, who hasn't been great on Green Bay, well, he had a nice impact as well. So, main takeaways, the Cowboys I don't think are a good team. I just think the Giants found a way to lose this game. The Giants cannot run the ball consistently. They really only have one true playmaker. It's Malik Neighbors. You can feel confident in the fact that Wilson and him have a connection, but can you feel very confident in the future of this franchise right now with its state? No. But you can say the same for the Cowboys too, because quite frankly, it shouldn't have been that close of a game. The Cowboys almost lost. They would have been 0-2. Without the kick, both kicks from Aubrey, they would be 0-2. So take that as well. So these are two teams that are, I don't want to say in desperation mode, because the Giants came into this season with really very low expectations, especially after last year. The Cowboys have been a team with playoff aspirations. They're not settling for anything less than that. This is a team that needs to start to have dominant performances, or else a lot of heads are going to turn. And they already have, especially after the Parsons trade. So that was the Giants-Cowboys matchup, which if you bet money on that game, I mean, you probably bet in the side of the Cowboys. If you took the Giants money line, I don't know what you were thinking. You took the Cowboys money line, you were sweating for quite a bit there. All right? You were sweating for quite a bit, but they didn't cover the spread. They didn't. I believe the spread was 5.5. 4.5, actually. It was 4.5. And they only won by 3. So, interesting stuff there. Not a game I would have pegged to be the game of the week, but it was. So, there you go. Giants 0-2, Cowboys 1-1. Let's move over to a former New York Giant and some takeaways here. What went on with the Denver Broncos to lose to Daniel Jones 29-28? This was just a terrible coaching performance by the Broncos, and Daniel Jones has been playing some pretty solid football. And when you've got a guy who's executing, throwing 300-plus yards a game, and you don't coach this right, you're going to get outplayed and outcoached. And Sean Payton was outcoached today, without a doubt. There were so many mistakes, though, from the Broncos. It looked like they were going to walk away with a 2-point win. 2-point victory. And then Spencer Schrader misses a field goal, 60 yards. So it's like looking good. It's looking strong. And then, of course, you've got a 15-yard penalty for leverage against Tillman. He attempted to dive over the center and hit him. with a big, big, big splash, if you want to use that term. And then it's it's just, to me, one of the most obscure rules in the NFL that decided a game in recent memory. That's one of the worst ways to lose a game. It was a clear and obvious foul, though. It was. It was a good call, but what a terrible way to lose a game. Schrader then hits a 45-yarder, and that's the game, right? So you handed the Colts a win there. If you had just stayed disciplined, he misses the 60-yarder. Now you make it a 45-yarder. That's a chip shot in this league now. That's a chip shot. And this just feels like an ongoing narrative with the Broncos. Just inconsistent. Bo Nix was much better in week 2 than he was week 1. He went 22 of 30 for 206 yards, 3 touchdown passes, 1 interception. But he's very jittery. He's very inconsistent. He doesn't have great decision making yet, and it's been a bit shaky for him. He looked a lot worse in week 1, and he was more put together week 2 against the Colts. He had an excellent first half. He made an incredible throw on a scramble to hit Troy Franklin 42 yards in the second quarter, and he wasn't sacked. He turned just under 37% of his dropbacks into first downs, which is really right above the league average. So, and his QBR was up more than 45 points compared to week 1. So he had a much better week. But that doesn't win you an entire game. Unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you've got Patrick Mahomes that wins you games left and right. But even that's not working anymore, right? Even that's not working anymore. But there was inconsistency. Nix had that interception, and there was just so many penalty issues. And I talked about this with the Giants because the Giants had way too many penalties. They had 14 penalties in that game against the Cowboys. There's a lot of penalty issues in Denver as well. J.K. Dobbins had a 23-yard run to put the Broncos into the red zone, and then he was flagged and penalized 5 yards for spiking the football. That's just lack of discipline. The Broncos ran Dobbins for no gain, and then the tight end was flagged for a face mask penalty. Right? So now it's a 1st and 25 situation. So you're in the red zone, and now you're quickly not. And then a screen on 3rd and 24 got them back into field goal range, but the penalties brought the drive to a stop, kept them from scoring a touchdown, and that probably would have sealed the game. You can't blame an entire loss on penalties, but that's such a lack of discipline. And as a coach, you have to hold your guys accountable. There's a certain level of margin for error regarding mistakes when you're playing a bad team. They were able to bully their opposition in week 1. But you cannot do that against better teams. And the Colts are looking like a more put-together team as of right now. They couldn't slow down the Colts' run game. Jonathan Taylor went 165 yards, 25 carries. That's prime JT right there. And Daniel Jones is playing a meaningful role right now. He's been extremely impressive on the ground in scrambles so far this season. And I love this new TE in Tyler Warren, man. He is a baller. He's a big guy. He's good at what he does as a rookie. And he makes plays happen, and he's able to move even after the catch. Yards after catch, he's able to capitalize on that. Not a ton of tight ends do that in the league. You see Kelsey do it. You see Kittle when he's healthy do it. You see Knox, Kincaid, they're able to do it as well in Buffalo. Not a ton of tight ends do get yards after catch. And Tyler Warren's one of those athletic guys. So Daniel Jones has a run game, and he's got targets that work in his favor, and he's got passing in Jonathan Taylor as well. Taylor can catch a ball and run, right? He's able to be that receiving running back as well that not a lot of teams have. So Daniel Jones is in a good spot right now. He's in a good spot. And it's really, really interesting to me that Daniel Jones is succeeding in Indy and couldn't do it in New York. And that's not speculation on, like, are the Giants just bad at developing talent? But It's an interesting question. It begs the question, what are they going to do when Jackson Dart starts under center? But that's a separate conversation for a separate day. Good for DJ. Danny Dimes. Some are calling him Indiana Jones now for his success. He's looking like a top 10 quarterback in the league through week 2. Maybe you rank him even a little bit higher. He's been consistent. You haven't seen turnovers with him. He's looking really solid. And if you just look at their schedule, right? They got the Titans, they got the Rams, they got the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Chargers, then the Titans again, then the Steelers, the Falcons, and then you got the Chiefs, right? So that takes you through November for the most part. It's not an incredibly demanding schedule in terms of matchups. The Raiders, I see as a win. The Cardinals, I think they could win. I think they could beat the Titans. I think they could beat the Falcons if they continue playing like they are. So the Colts are in a good spot to have this success right now. They're 2-0. They're first in the AFC South, right? The Jags are 1-1. The Texans are 0-1. The Titans are 0-2. The Texans to play tonight, of course. So, I mean, I guess you want to call it what it is. Like, it's not guaranteed because it is Daniel Jones and everyone's expecting him to implode and be old Daniel Jones. But I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen. He's in a different scheme. He's got different pieces around him. And he's been doing well with it. And against matchups that aren't incredibly difficult, he's in a good spot. He's in a good spot. Now, we got to talk about this Bengals-Jaguars game because this is huge in a poor way that Joe Burrow is going to miss time. Reports are saying that it is a serious toe injury. They call it turf toe, but that there's ligaments involved, and he's going to need surgery is what it seems like, and he's going to be out for at least 3 months. So Jake Browning is going to be the guy. And this is a huge storyline for a multitude of reasons. This Bengals team is 2-0, so Jake Browning was able to sustain a win against the Jaguars even after their QB1 was out. And there's a lot of panic here. But let's look at what Joe Burrow has done in the first week, right? He didn't do well week 1. It wasn't a great performance from him. They snuck that win out by a point in week 1. Week 2 sets up for a little bit more success, but still not his best performance. Then he gets hurt. I do think they can play 500 type ball with Jake Browning. But that's 3 months now that it's going to be Jake Browning. Unless they choose to do something else. We don't know. Can they sustain that? Well, let's look at their schedule. Not completely a cakewalk. They play the Vikings next Sunday, then they play the Broncos, and they play the Lions, and they play the Packers, the Steelers, the Jets. So right there, those next 4 matchups are going to be telling as to whether or not they can hold on because they're in a rough spot now. They set themselves up well with a cushion. They're 2-0. That's huge for them because they're number 1 in the division. The Ravens are 1-1. The Steelers are 1-1. The Browns are 0-2. But matchups against the Vikings, that's a winnable matchup in my eyes. The Broncos, arguably the best defense in the league right now. Now, after this past week, you say what you want, but they're a very talented defense. That's tough as well. And then it's the Lions and the Packers, 2 teams that right now seem very dominant. The Lions, there's a lot of questions surrounding them after they dropped that game to the Packers, and it wasn't all that difficult. But you see what the Lions were able to do. They put up 50-plus against the Bears. No holding back in that matchup against former OC Ben Johnson. And the Packers have been very dominant as well. The Packers defense has looked really, really solid. Can they sustain that? We'll see. The Bengals do not have a cakewalk. And now you're missing your QB1, one of the best to do it in this league right now. A lot of questions. I don't want to harp on the Joe Burrow injury too much because it is what it is, right? It's looking like 3 months. There's not much you can do to switch. There's not much you can do to change that. But the interesting part is this game in particular. How the Bengals were able to win this game. When we saw Browning start in 2023, he went 4-3, had a total 60.9 total QBR. That was good for 9th in the NFL from week 10 forward. And they helped him posts the league's second best average yards after catch per reception over that span, but he also had the league's third best off-target rate and third best precise pass rate. The latter measuring how reliably each QB puts the ball on his receivers in stride with throws near the torso. So that's kind of a specific stat from ESPN right there. He was throwing some of the shortest passes in the league, though. But that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing when you're accurate and your guys are athletic and can move. He is prone, though, to more negative plays than Burrow. He ran worse than average in terms of sack and interception rates during his time under center in 23. And while he was sacked only once on Sunday, he did throw 3 interceptions after entering the lineup. But that's going to happen when you haven't actually played live football in more than a year. That's expected. 3 interceptions, that's a little much, but it's going to happen. So instead of taking advantage, and even though it's sad that Joe Burrow got hurt, instead of taking advantage of the fact that QB1 is now out and you got a guy who hasn't played in a year in a live atmosphere, instead of taking advantage of that and building off of that, Jacksonville melts down. Jacksonville melts down. Got a misdirection attempt with Travis Etienne on first down. That lost 4 yards. Second down pass off of fingertips of Brown. Third down run got the Jags to 4th and 5. And then, of course, head coach calls to run a mesh, which is usually called in pretty key situations. And then the Bengals play zone. And then Brian Thomas got open right over the ball, but he drops Trevor Lawrence's pass, turned the ball over on downs. So dropped passes, lack of continuity in offense. Thomas is being hounded on social media after this game for wanting to avoid hits. And maybe there's evidence for it on Lawrence's second interception of the game, where Thomas appeared to stick one arm out half-heartedly with a collision coming. It's not a good look, and he's getting killed for it on social media. This is a guy that's supposed to be a threat offensively. I'm not sure why Thomas would suddenly do something like that or be afraid to get hit or be afraid of contact when he broke plenty of tackles last year. I'm also really not sure why this is such a big story in one matchup, but the fact that it is a story means we have to talk about it. I don't see this as, I'm afraid to get hit, but I also see it as, you got to go after the ball. You got to give 110%. I don't see it as fear factor. I mean, these are grown men in the NFL. They're not afraid to get hit. They get hit every single day in practice and every single Sunday or Monday or Thursday in games. I see this more as a lack of effort almost. Kind of as a dig your feet in the sand because you're losing the game or whatever the case is, and you're not taking advantage of the opportunities. I also don't think Trevor Lawrence is all that consistent and good either. And that whole situation of him waving off his head coach, that's even more of a dysfunctional thing for me. And it's so interesting post-game that you hear that it's just, it's the competitor in him. Oh, it's just competition. Oh, there's no hard feelings. Your coach tells you to do something. I'm sorry you do it. You're not Patrick Mahomes. You're not Josh Allen. You're Trevor Lawrence. You haven't proved all that much since your time in the league. You really haven't. I mean, he's had some regression since he joined as a rookie. So to wave off your coach so clearly, literally gave him the hand. That's crazy to me. You know, you're a Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or even Lamar Jackson caliber talent, and you wave off your coach because you see something else or you disagree, that's a different story. You're Trevor Lawrence. You listen to your coach, man. You listen to what he has to say. Because you don't have much of a high ground or a pedestal to put yourself on based on the performances that you've put out there in the league. So, I think that's just dysfunction and lack of discipline, and maybe coach and player don't see eye to eye. it's going to be something to monitor for the Jaguars because they're in a situation now with a rookie head coach that they have to win. They have to win games. And there was no reason they shouldn't have taken advantage of Burrow's injury and pummeled on Jake Browning. And yeah, he threw 3 picks. So in a way, they did pummel on him, but they didn't capitalize on any of the turnovers. And still, it wasn't all that close of a game, with the final score being 31-27. Yes, it was close, but it wasn't like, a field goal type of close. It was 4 points. So it was a 1-score game still, without your best player in Joe Burrow. I don't know. It's interesting to me. It's interesting that the Jaguars don't seem like they very much capitalized, and it seems like there may be some lack of effort in certain places or some lack of continuity and camaraderie in certain places. And, that's what makes a team thrive. That's the little things that are the difference between playoff teams and just average teams. So it's something to monitor. It's something to monitor for sure. So for me now, I'm in a position where I've lost Joe Burrow in both my leagues, and you may call me crazy for actually drafting Burrow in both my leagues, and many say never draft the same quarterback in both leagues for that exact reason. I was very confident, though, in Burrow this year. I watched the quarterback show on Netflix. I watched, all the social media hype and Burrow's swag and everything, and I fell into the trap because I know that Burrow starts off his season very, very slow, fantasy-wise, but then he picks it up. But now there's nothing to pick up because he's out for 3 months. So now I'm on now I'm in desperation, need a quarterback, waiver wire mode. So I wanted to talk about this before we close this episode out, just for input if you're listening, or if you're in a similar situation. So here's my current scenarios that I've got. In my one league, have obviously Burrow now that's not going to be playing. On waivers, 3 guys are available that I've considered. You got Daniel Jones, Michael Penix Jr., and C.J. Stroud. Those 3 are available, but the interesting part is that a trade was just offered to me this morning. And in the trade, I would receive Bo Nix and Devontae Adams, and he would receive Aaron Jones and DK Metcalf. Now, this is enticing to me for a multitude of reasons. One, I need a quarterback. Bo Nix has been inconsistent, but his last matchup looked good, and the Broncos' schedule doesn't look all that scary to me. They're playing the Chargers and then the Bengals, which we talked about that one. Then the Eagles, that one's a little scary, but then they play the Jets, the Giants, the Cowboys. So those 3... assuming Burrow's not back by then, because 3 months is not going to have him back by mid-October, I can work with that. And then, of course, the acquisition of Devontae Adams. For me, DK Metcalf is such an up-and-down streaky guy. He only scored 11 fantasy points yesterday. And Rodgers, as well, as a streaky guy and in his own right, even though we know what he's capable of, he's not what he used to be. And in terms of production offensively, you're lucky if you get 15 points out of Rodgers as a quarterback. So that's another option that I don't love. So I'm thinking about that trade, and I like it. I like it. But I'm kind of in the same position for both my leagues now with Burrow. On the 3 guys, Stroud, Danny Dimes, and Michael Penix Jr. The thing with Daniel Jones is that how long can he sustain this? We've seen what bad Daniel Jones looks like, and I don't want to be a victim of it. And I know the second that I pick him up, I'm going to be a victim of it. Michael Penix, is it too early to really be confident in this kid? Or is it time? Is it time to trust him and to trust his ability to make risky throws and rely on his guys? I have Bijan Robinson, so it helps me in the sense that if Penix doesn't get a throwing and passing touchdown, I get the rushing one most likely in Bijan if they don't put Tyler Algier in. A lot of things to think about as a fantasy coach. Maybe you're in the same situation, and if you are, I encourage you to reach out to me on socials. Everything's in the link of this episode. Or if you're listening on YouTube, it's in the link in the description below. Let me know what you're thinking about doing. Because I don't necessarily know how much I would trust Danny Dimes or C.J. Stroud or Michael Penix. Because they're all very streaky in terms of fantasy points. I mean, you don't need to put up 35. I need like 15, maybe 20 at this point. And just stash Burrow for when he's healthy and when he returns. And I like the Devontae Adams acquisition because I think he's better than DK. I think he is. Even if he's not wide receiver 1, Puka Nakua's gotten a lot of those targets, and he put up about 40 yesterday in terms of fantasy, against me, of course. But Devontae had a nice day too. So I'm thinking of that trade. I'll let you know if I did it on Friday, if I decided on it yet. It's going to be interesting for sure, but I need a QB, right? That's the name of the game. So let me know your thoughts on that, and I'll give you the update soon. But it's tough out here for fantasy owners, man. It's tough out here. And I lost Eckler too. Now, granted, Eckler was on my bench. I wasn't going to use him unless needed or if he was really hot. Now there's no option. I lost Xavier Worthy in week 1 in my other league. I did get to pick up Hollywood Brown. That was helpful. But Worthy as well. He's doubtful and day-to-day and whatever the case is with that. His shoulder injury, unpredictable stuff. So being a fantasy owner is hard. It's hard. And it's not for the weak. And I got to tell you, I'm feeling bad. I'm 0-2 in both leagues right now. It's going to take a miracle to come back strong. And it's going to take some precise decision-making. So send me some luck, some Godspeed, whatever it is that you can do for me, because I don't know. I think I'm going to have to go with my gut, and I don't really know what my gut's telling me to do yet in terms of quarterback, because there's not a huge pool of quarterbacks that I trust right now in waiver wire. And honestly, I don't know if I trust Bo Nix either. So that's my dilemma. That's how we're going to end the show. And if you're in a similar situation, definitely reach out, DM me, message me, whatever. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. So that's going to wrap up the Week 2 Wake Up. We're going to do this hopefully every single Monday around the same time. I'll get those episodes out by 2 p.m. in the afternoon for the Week 1, Week 2, Week 3, etc. Wake-ups. And then Fridays will be the regularly scheduled podcasts that you hear. So please send me in messages for these week wake-ups, your takeaways, your reactions. I'm going to put them on my social media going forward every Monday morning. Be on the lookout for that. Again, if you don't follow me on socials, go ahead, follow me there. The link to all my socials is in the description of this episode, wherever you're listening to this episode. And I'd love to get in touch with you, talk some football, and hear your thoughts. Make sure that you follow this podcast on all the platforms you listen to or wherever you are looking at it right now. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode. Very, very much enjoy talking football, talking sports in general with you. We'll definitely talk some MLB on Friday, so stay tuned for that because the playoffs are very, very near, and we got a lot to unpack there as well with what's going on, what the wild card race looks like for both New York teams and the playoff picture as a whole. And there's a lot of football to go. 2 games tonight. Going to be exciting matchups. Hopefully some exciting games. No snooze fests, please, for Monday night. Hopefully not, because there's 2 games. And we have short attention spans these days as human beings, myself included. So hopefully these aren't snooze fests like last night's game was, because that one was a pretty disgusting game to watch. I'll see you Friday, 5 p.m., wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to be awesome. Enjoy some sports. Have a good one. I'll talk to you next time.